Some people are not upset because you changed. They are upset because you stopped playing the role that made them comfortable. That is the part most people do not want to say out loud. They did not always love your peace. Sometimes they loved your availability. They did not always love your kindness. Sometimes they loved your lack of boundaries. They did not always love the real you. Sometimes they loved the version of you they could predict, interrupt, guilt, distract, and keep small. So when you begin to wake up, when your energy changes, when your standards rise, when you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, they call it changing. But sometimes what they call changing is really your spirit returning to its original shape. Sometimes you've changed means you are no longer abandoning yourself to keep me comfortable. And that is where the real test begins. Because there is a version of you people are comfortable with. Not because it is the truest version of you, but because it asks nothing from them. It does not challenge the room. It does not make anyone question their habits. It laughs at the same jokes, accepts the same limits, repeats the same complaints, and stays small enough to be understood. But the moment you begin to outgrow that version, people feel it. Before you even explain yourself, they feel it. You stop saying yes so quickly. You stop wasting your energy on things that used to own you. You start choosing silence over gossips, discipline over distraction, peace over approval, truth over comfort. And then the comments come. You've changed. You're acting different. You think you're better now. That last one hurts because most of the time you are not trying to be better than anyone. You're just trying to stop betraying yourself. And that is a very different thing. When you begin to grow, you do not just change your habits. You change the agreement you had with the world. The old agreement was simple. I'll make myself easier for you to accept, even if it makes me harder for myself to live with. That is what fitting in often costs. On the outside, everything may look fine. You are included. You are invited. Nobody questions you. Nobody feels threatened. But inside, something starts to split. You know when you are laughing just to belong. You know when you are lowering your standards so people do not feel judged. You know when you are hiding your ambition, your healing, your faith, your focus, your clarity, your hunger for more life. You know, and the body knows too. It shows up as tension, irritation, tiredness, that strange emptiness after spending time with people you had to perform for. This is not because those people are evil. It is because pretending is expensive, and eventually the soul stops wanting to pay. So you make a different choice. You choose growth. But growth has a cost too. Now the conflict is no longer hidden inside you. It shows up outside you. People misunderstand you. They question your motives. They call your boundaries selfish. They call your focus obsession. They call your healing distance. They call your standards arrogance. And if you're not careful, you will run back to the old version of yourself just to make the room feel normal again. That is the trap. Not criticism, not rejection, not being misunderstood. The real trap is returning to a smaller life because other people were more comfortable when you were easier to explain. So you have to ask yourself something honest. Which discomfort do you want? The discomfort of being judged by others or the discomfort of being abandoned by yourself? Because both are real. If you choose fitting in, you may keep peace around you, but you lose peace inside you. If you choose becoming who you are, you may lose approval around you, but you start gaining trust inside you. And that inner trust is everything. Because without it, you can have applause and so feel empty. You can have company and so feel alone. You can be accepted by everyone around you and still feel rejected by your own soul. That is the hidden pain of fitting in. And here's why it feels so hard. Human beings are wired to belong. Rejection does not just feel like opinion. To the nervous system, it can feel like danger. That is why one strange look can make you question a decision you prayed over, cried over, and fought for. That is why one comment from an old friend or from social media can make you feel like you're doing something wrong. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes discomfort is just a feeling of leaving an old identity. A seed does not become a tree by staying protected in a shell. At some point, the shell has to break. From the seed's point of view, that might feel like the end. From life's point of view, it is the beginning. That is what real growth feels like. It feels like losing yourself until you realize you were only losing the mask. It feels like loneliness until you realize you are making space for honest connection. It feels like rebellion until you realize you are simply returning to the truth. Spiritually, this is where every real path begins. Not with sounding wise, not with pretending to be peaceful, not with looking enlightened in front of people, but with the courage to stop lying. The false self wants approval. The deeper self wants truth. The ego asks, will they like me? The soul asks, am I still being real? And at some point, you have to decide which question will lead your life, because you cannot worship approval and live in truth at the same time. You can love people, you can honor people, you can be kind to people, but you cannot let their comfort become the cage around your calling. And this matters in everything you build: your work, your art, your business, your relationships, your health, your future. You cannot create an honest life while being addicted to everyone's approval. If every step needs to be understood, you will never walk far. If every dream needs applause, you would only choose dreams small enough to be accepted. At some point, discipline will look like distance. Focus will look like obsession. Peace will look like boredom to people addicted to chaos. And self-respect will look like pride to people who only knew you when you had none. Let them misunderstand you for a while. You do not need to explain every step of your becoming. You do not need to hold a press conference for your growth. Just keep becoming, quietly, honestly, with love, with humility, with courage. But listen carefully. Becoming awakened does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean everyone else is asleep and you are above them. It does not mean you get to be cold, cruel, dismissive, or spiritually superior. If your growth makes you look down on people, that is not awakening. That is ego wearing spiritual language. If your boundaries become punishment, check your heart. If your healing makes you incapable of hearing correction, check your heart. If your truth makes you less loving, less honest, less responsible, check your heart. Raw truth does not need arrogance to be powerful. Real growth makes you more loving, but less available for manipulation. More compassionate, but less willing to lie. More peaceful, but less willing to abandon yourself. You can bless people and still outgrow a pattern. You can love people and still disappoint their expectations. You can honor where you came from and still refuse to live there forever. So when they say you've changed, breathe before you defend yourself. Maybe you have changed. Maybe you no longer find comfort in chaos. Maybe you no longer mistake attention for love. Maybe you no longer confuse loyalty for self-abandonment. Maybe you no longer want a life that looks normal but feels empty. Maybe you have now become less of yourself. Maybe you have finally stopped negotiating with the parts of you that were never meant to be sold. So let them notice. Let them talk. Let them need time. You do not have to hate the people who only recognize the old you, but you also do not have to resurrect that version just to make them comfortable. The old version of you was surviving, but the real you wants to live. So choose your discomfort. The discomfort of being accepted for who you are not, or the discomfort of being misunderstood for who you are becoming. Both paths cost something, but only one path gives you yourself back. Keep going, quietly, honestly, without making yourself superior, without making yourself small, because fitting in can give you a place in the room, but becoming who you really are gives you a place in your own life. And that is the place you were missing all along. That is not losing yourself. That is waking up.